Hey everybody, welcome to a fit tip, not fit tip, why do I keep saying fit tip? Welcome to Fab Fit Friday. I have to admit I'm a little tired today. I've been up since 4 a.m. For some reason I woke up and my eyes were wide open and wide awake in America and I couldn't fall back asleep, so I'm a little tired, but I am excited because I have a plan for my first version of my skirt for using the skirt sloper that we made last week. And I'm excited because we're going to have a little bit of a Vogue moment. I'm going to show you something I pulled out of Vogue magazine that I'm going to use to sort of recreate as my first skirt. Hi Janie, welcome. And before we get going, hi Mary, hi Diane, welcome ladies. You're at Fab Fit Friday with Tired Jen. Um, I've had a couple like nights in a row where I have not slept, so it's gonna be okay though. I'm excited about this project. Before we start working, hi Diane, welcome ladies. Before we start working on the skirt project itself, I want to show you some examples of how your skirt sloper could have come out if your shape is different than my rectangular shape. And then I also want to talk about when you do your darts, I have a few different tips for that. So let me just switch my view here. Okay, so all right, I want to show you this little diagram here, and the first thing I want to talk about is if your full hip is low, meaning the fullest part of your hip is, I would say, more than 8 inches lower than 8 inches, more than 8 inches lower from the waist. I would consider that a low hip. Hi, Jerry. Oh, Jerry doesn't make skirts, but she just wanted to be here to watch. Never know what you might learn. That's true, Jerry. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Andrea. Good morning. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is a low full hip. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this diagram. As I was saying, if your full hip is lower from the waist than 8 inches, consider yourself a low full hip. And what can happen if the fullest part of your skirt is down that low? Sometimes if you draw your straight side seam, it tends to fall against your leg. So if you have a low full hip, I'm just going to label this low full hip. Okay, what you want to do is you want to add an inch to the width of your hem starting where that full hip line is. So this is an adjustment that you can do, after you drape your pieces. It might not have been noticeable, but adding a little bit of ease at the hem, and I'm just going to darken it in so you can see here. This will make the skirt hang nicer. Okay, so you're just going to do that on the front and the back. So that's the first thing I want to share with you. Okay, and this skirt has darts in the front and the back. It is likely, based on your shape, you may need darts in the front and the back. I have basically a rectangle in the front with one dart in the back, but you may need more than one dart, and you may need them front and back. The next thing I want to point out to you here is sometimes, depending on your shape, your hip curve can actually come out a little bit from the whole full hip if your waistline measurement is wider than your full hip measurement. So I just wanted to show you that if your pattern looks something like this, where it's slightly, it's coming out from the full hip, that's not wrong. If it fits, it's your shape. So I just wanted to, just share that as well. Hi, Nilgun. Welcome. And then the last thing I want to share with you, sort of as a fine tuning based on your unique shape, is if you have a round, like if the top of your skirt looks like this, so sort of round, like a really high curved side seams, so they would look like this. So let's pretend this is a skirt here. So let's say they come up like this, okay? And that would indicate if you've got a really prominent curve above the full hip line. It's likely that your fullest part of your hip is up high. So you have like a high full hip. So I'm just going to draw my high full hip in like this. If that's the situation that you're in, then another thing you can do to make your skirt fit a little bit nicer is to create a dart with shaped legs. So what I mean by that is normally a dart looks like this, you know, okay? But if you were to curve them like this a little bit, so they're more of a curve, that's going to give you a little bit of a better fit. And the reason why a dart like this works is because many times if you have a high round full hip with a very curved top to your side seams like this, chances are you need to take out a good amount to get it to fit around your waist. But also because you have a high full hip, the total length of the dart is relatively short. So by curving these lines, you can create a dart that will have a maximum takeout up at the top, but then you can make it shorter and taper in to the tip of the dart sooner, and then be able to sew that and get a nice smooth finish at the end. So that's why a curved dart like this is really helpful if you have a very high full hip, you know, and especially if your side seams are curving in like that, that's an indication. Hi Heather, good morning from Tasmania. Oh my goodness, I think you're the first viewer I've had from Tasmania. That's very exciting. Welcome. Nilgun's from Istanbul. I feel very international today. Okay, so does everybody understand what we're talking about here in terms of fine-tuning either your darts, or the shape of your side seams might look different than mine because you have a curvier shape, or if you have a low full hip, to add a little bit of ease at the side seam, at the hem. All right, so those are some things I just wanted to share with you before we get going. Now, I'm going to widen out my view here. And you can see that I traced a copy of my pattern, and I'm keeping my master pattern so I can make more things from it. So this is a copy, and I thought, because after I got off, after I ended the video showing how to make a paper pattern from your fabric pieces, I said, oh, I'm not going to test it. That's really a bad rule to follow. You really should test your draped pieces before you start making stuff. So I'm going to compromise, and I'm going to make a version of a straight skirt that's a little more interesting than just sewing together the pieces and trying it. So that's what I'm going to work on here. So I want to show you. Oh, Nilgun, good night from Istanbul, and Claudia, or Claude, I'm not sure. Hello from Florida. Hello from sunny Florida. It's freezing here in Connecticut. It's like barely 30. It's chilly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I want to show you, I pulled this from Vogue magazine. This is a muumuu skirt here, and you can see it's basically a glorified straight skirt, and it looks like it's made out of sweatshirt fleece. It has a center front seam, and I'm guessing there's probably a center back seam as well. And it has a unique little triangle design up at the top. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then it looks like the hem is folded all the way up to a very wide hem, and then it's stitched with a industrial, looks like reverse cover hem, and it also has slash pockets. So I thought it would be fun to show you how to find a photo or a picture of something that you like, and then use that as a inspiration to create a skirt. So essentially I'm going to be copying this to create my first skirt. And the cool thing is, because it's a straight skirt, I'll be able to work out any of the fitting problems that I might have before I start adding flare and other things. So this is what I'm going to work on today. Oh, Nilgun says, all right, so Nilgun says it's really spring is coming. It is. Spring is coming. It's coming here too, but it just, March is a crazy month in New England because it could be, next week we're going to have 60-degree weather, like warmer than average, and you know, the past couple of days have been colder than average. It's just a crazy weather month in New England. So I am looking forward to warmer weather. Although I will tell you that, you know, I hike and I have my ice spikes, and even though it's gotten warm and then it rained, the trails have been packed down by the mountain bikers. So there's probably, you know, 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 inches of ice still on a large part of the trails that I go on. So having this slow, like cold nights, and maybe it gets a little above freezing during the day, it's really maintaining that trail, and it's not creating a muddy mess for me, so I'm kind of happy about that. But by next week all the ice will be gone. Okay, so then Claude, you said Claudia the first time. It's also now I don't remember if I said Claude or Claudia the first time, but it's also a girl's name in France. Okay. All right. I'm so sorry if I ever say anybody's name wrong. That sometimes I look up quick and I want to say hi to you, and then I look at your name and I'm like, oh gosh. So I hope I didn't really mess that up. All right. So we're going to do this skirt today. I'm going to show you how to make the pieces, and then I think I will find some lightweight sweatshirt fleece to make this skirt. And then next Friday, I will show you how to sew it up. And I think we'll do some special techniques on the serger. For example, you know, maybe I'll show you how to do like a sporty flat lock, or I'll try to keep it to a 4-thread serger so everybody can do it. So maybe I'll do like a reverse flat lock to construct it so it looks sporty like this. All right, so keeping that picture in mind, here is my pattern. Okay, and it's traced, as I said. Now remember, I did not put seam allowances on here, so I'm going to have to add my seam allowances. But we're going to start up at the top, and I'm just going to cut my skirt pieces in half here so I have them to go, ready to go separately. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to design the waistband. And you know, I'm looking at this skirt, and that looks like a really wide waistband. And happily, I'm a wide waistband fan myself. So I'm going to go with a 2-inch waistband for this skirt. And because I drafted this or draped it on my dress form all the way to the waistline, what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop my waistline from the top of the skirt. So to do that, I'm going to measure down 2 inches from the top, and I'm just going to draw a line here. Oops. All right, so here is my, this is going to be my waistline here. And I think what I'm going to do is, you guys see, I think that's dark enough for you to see. I'm going to label this waist front waistband, and then I'm going to cut it off. And this is going to be my center front is right here and my side seam is right here. It's really important to label those things because once you cut it off, it can get very confusing. So I'm going to cut this off on the line. I'm just going to put the rest of the skirt away for a second. And then I'm going to do the same thing to my back piece. Okay, so I'm going to measure my 2 inches here. And I'm measuring to the dart legs like this. And actually, well, I probably could just cut it right across here. All right, so there's my 2 inches for the back. Again, I have my center back and my side seam. I'm going to cut that off. All right, so those are my waistband pieces. Now what I'm going to do is, let's start with the back first. Okay, so in the back, what I'm going to do is I want to close this dart, but this is a huge dart for, you know, just to have one dart. I was being lazy. I probably could have broken this down into 2 darts. If I close this single dart, it's going to make a big honkin' angle on my waistband like this. See how angled that is? And I know for me that's really not going to be a flattering fit because I really don't have that much shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the amount of dart intake. This is 1.5 inches. That's a huge dart. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw on either side of the dart, and then I'm going to make, because this is 1.5 inches, I'm going to make 2 darts that are 1 inch, that are 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to do this, and then 1, 2, 3, and then at the bottom, it's a little more than 1/2 inch, so I will just do a generous 1/4 inch at the bottom. So this is how I'm kind of splitting up these darts. So then I can close these darts and it won't be as, I mean, I can close this dart and then I'll make another one over here. And then again, like a generous 1/4 down here. And then that way it won't be as dramatic and it'll make a nicer curved shape. So this is no longer a dart. I'm going to cut. Oh, Diana wants to know if I labeled the back correctly. Let me make sure that I did. Okay. Yes, because it's opposite than the front. So here's my back. This is my center back. And then on my front, it should be opposite, and it is. My center front is right there. So yes, yeah, I did. But you know what, Diane? Keep a good close eye on me, because remember, I'm tired. Okay, so now I'm gonna close these darts by cutting one dart leg, and then I'm gonna close it by taping it to the one I did not cut. And you'll see this just creates a little bit of a better shape. It's not as dramatic. So there's one. And then here's the other one. Okay, so I've closed those. And of course, because I moved the dart, I'm going to have to measure up 2 inches at the center of my original dart and just finish that edge, because there shouldn't be a peak here for the dart. Okay, so, and actually I probably can just erase that so it's not confusing looking. Anyway, so here is my back waistband. Okay, so there's that. And then my front is all ready to go because there are no darts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out, I'm going to cut these out. And remember, I don't have any seam allowances here, so all I have to do is cut them out and tape them together. And when you're putting together a waistband like this, it's a good idea to tape it to another piece of paper and then sort of trace it, and then you can you can trace it onto a piece of paper and add your seam allowances there, so you're not making what I would call a sloppy copy. Okay, so here's my paper. I've got that ready. Okay, so here's my front, here is my back. Let me make this a little bit bigger now. Oops. So you can see. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to tape the side seams together. And remember, all I have to do is butt them up right up next to each other because I don't have any seam allowances. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just tape these together like this. And I think what I'm going to do for this skirt is I'm going to cut it out on the center front fold, and then I will have a seam at the center back for this skirt. So you've got to kind of plan, you know, where your seams are going to be. So I am just going to tape this pattern piece down here, just to make it easy. And just so you can see the original edge of the waistband, I think what I'm going to do is I'll use a colored Sharpie marker and I'll just outline it so you can see. So here's my center back, and I'm just going to trace right along the top here. So this is the top edge of my waistband. Okay. Okay. All right, so now you'll be able to see it a little bit better because I highlighted it in pink. All right, so the next step is we want to add a seam allowance to this. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to add my 1/2 inch, and I'll add that in blue just so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm not going to add anything to my center front because remember, I'm going to cut it out on the fold at my center front. So I am just going to make this waistband, and when I get to the curved part, I'm just going to dash along here with using the short end of my ruler like this. Okay, now one thing I want to point out to you, and this, depending on how curvy you are, this could become a bigger issue for you. I'm just going to draw a straight line with the blue here. You can see at the bottom of where I close these darts, let me just make it big so you can see. On the bottom, it peaks down a little bit, and at the top, it peaks in a little bit because of, you know, of closing it. So when you add your seam allowances, you can adjust for that and kind of smooth it out as you go. Now I'm going to have a center back seam, so I'm going to add that. Center back seam. Now instead of measuring from the edge of the top up a 1/2 inch to create a seam allowance, I'm going to measure from this bottom edge 3 inches up because my waistband's 2 inches. and I want a consistent 3 inches. And if I cut it out wrong, or if I traced it a little bit off, it's easier to maintain a consistent 3-inch width if you measure from the bottom seam allowance up. Okay, so I am going to just start on this end, and I'm going to just measure 3 inches up. Okay, and I'm just going to follow along. And you're going to notice that the top seam allowance is not going to look as wide as the bottom seam allowance. And that's because, you know, maybe I used the width of the pen and made the bottom bigger. So by measuring from here across, it will add up to the right amount that you were trying to achieve. So if anybody has any questions about that, please let me know. But you can see here, it looks like I'm creating an uneven seam allowance at the top, but it's because I'm using what I drew at the bottom, and I'm kind of truing up the width as I go here. If I were using a pencil, it wouldn't be as noticeable, but because I'm using a Sharpie marker, my Sharpie marker it's not quite 1/8 of an inch, but the Sharpie marker's got some width to it. So knowing that, I can compensate for that by just checking it from the bottom. Okay. All right, so here is my completed waistband. I'm going to cut, oh, actually, hold on, let me make it bigger again so you can see the whole thing. Here's my completed waistband. I'm going to take off my pieced version now, so I have a nice, neat waistband. I'm going to have to fill in where the Scotch tape covered my lines, but you can see this makes just a really nice, neat waistband. Whoops. All right, so then we've got our center back. This is our center back, and this is our center front. And we're going to cut on fold here. Cut on fold. All right, so that's my completed waistband. Okay, does anybody have any questions about creating a waistband? All right, so I'm going to just cut this out. It's not so big. All right, now we have waistband. Okay, so there's my waistband. All right, so now let's look at the back. Okay, you can see I've got this teeny weeny little dart right here. Okay, I mean it's a good sized dart. It's a 5/8 inch dart. If this dart was a 1/4 inch or less, I would just skim it off the side. And I think because I'm gonna have a center back seam here, I think what I'm gonna do is split it. So I'm gonna move my side seam in 1/4 over here, and I'm also going to move it in 1/4 on my center back. Okay, so up at the very top, I'm fine with having a slightly shaped center back seam here if I don't have to sew a dart, because it's such a short little dart that it's really not going to affect anything. So I'm going to just do this. Okay, so that gets rid of this. And then it will actually look like I have a little bit of a hip curve. All right, so I'm not, now this is not, and this is not, and I don't have a dart anymore. So after you cut your waistband off, if you barely have any dart left, if it's either really short or it could be really long but also really narrow, you can skim that off the side too. All right, but I wouldn't skim more than 1/4 or 3/8 off each side. If you have to, if it's bigger than that, I would keep the dart. Okay. All right, so that takes care of my dart. And I'm just going to erase my original side seams here to keep it neat. Okay, so this skirt, very, very simple. Let's get the picture back over here. All right, so we can't see the back, obviously, but my guess is the back is just like the front, except I'm not sure if it would have that triangle in the front. And really, that triangle is not a super attractive part of the skirt. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, because it's there's a little triangle right here, and then there's a center front seam that comes down. Wow, that did not help us. Hold on, let me write it in blue here. So there's a little triangle, and then there's a center front seam like that. Does that make it more obvious? So I'm just going to show you how to put that little triangle in there. I'm not saying I love that as a design detail, but just so you can see how to do it. That's in the front. There's also a slash pockets in the front. So for the back, I'm just going to say, all right, it's just a plain back with a center back seam and a side seam. Now, the other feature of this skirt is it's got this big double hem here. I'm going to make my double hem 4 inches. So this was the original hem on the skirt, so I extended my side seams down so I could add 4 inches to that. Okay, and then actually I don't even have enough paper, because what I'm going to have to do here is, if I want to fold that hem up, I'm going to have to extend my paper here. Let me show you. So here's my new, okay, so there's my new hem. Okay, so it's 4 inches below my original skirt length. Yay! I'm glad you're back. That's so exciting. Every now and then people disappear from my live streams, and then they do come back sometimes. I'm always happy to see people come back. I hope everything is fine and fabulous with you. All right. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just tape some paper to the end of my skirt here. Now that I defined my new hem. So we're going to make a self-facing for this skirt. So there, the blue line is the fold, the final length of my skirt. So what I need to do here is I need to add, and I'm just going to extend these lines down. So I'm just following along. And then the hem is 4 inches. The detail where I'm going to sew across is 4 inches up. So I'm going to add 4.5 inches to fold up, because I need to have fabric underneath my decorative stitching to hold the hem. So let's hold on one second. I'm just going to add 4.5 inches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And then I'm going to add 4.5 over here. And I'm just going to mark it in the middle too. Just want to make sure. All right, so this is going to be my, this is my facing, this is my hem facing. Okay, so from here to here is my hem facing. All right, so that really completes the back of the skirt. Oh, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for telling me, reminding me it's you. All right, so I just want to show you really big. All right, so this is my finished back skirt pattern, and if I were to, oh, no, it's not. I have to have my seam allowances. So let me just do that. So I am going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance up the side. And then up here at the top, where it curves, I'm just going to finish that. And then of course I also need one on my center back, because there's going to be a seam there as well. All right. Okay, so then I'm just going to continue it right down here all the way to my facing. All right, so now I can cut this out. Okay, I'll just cut out this side over here. Okay. All right, so this is my completed back piece, and I'm just gonna flip it over, and I'm going to just tape the back so it doesn't flip around here. All right. So see, when I work on this skirt, after I sew my side and inseams, I'm going to fold this up so I can hem it up here. Okay, so that's why we have this facing. All right, so that takes care of the back. Now I'm going to get my front over here. And so in the front, there's really nothing to do but add seam allowances. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that little triangle piece that's on the skirt. And I think what I'm going to do is let me just look at this for a second. See, this is why it's important to mark. All right, so this is my center front is over here. And this is my side seam. Okay, so I'm going to create my little triangle that's up at the top of the waist, right here. And to do that, I'm just going to measure, let's see, I'll make it maybe 2.5 inches across, and maybe I want 2.5 inches deep. So it's going to look like this. Okay, so see, it's this little piece right here. I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to add seam allowances to these pieces, and I'm going to create a full triangle piece there. So the first step is I want to cut this off. And I'm going to come in like this and cut it off so I can do my seam allowance. Alright, so here's this piece right here. Now, let's work on this little piece first. If I get some extra paper here, I'm going to fold my paper in half, or I'm going to fold my paper. I am going to tape this so that so I'm taping the center front, I'll do it like this. So I'm taping the center front right on the fold. Okay. And actually, I don't think I'm going to tape it. I think I'm going to pin it. I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to just pin it on like that. Oops, not like that. This will keep, not only will this keep the pattern piece straight, but it will also keep the double layers together too. So now I'm going to add my seam allowance here. So I'm going to add a 1/2 inch here. And a 1/2 inch up here. Actually, I'm not going to add it. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. All right. Hold on. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch up here. Okay. And then I'm going to stop this point a 1/2 inch below. All right, so when I cut this out, okay, let's take a look at that now. That's going to be my triangle shaped insert up at the top of the waist. Now, what I just realized is I did not add a seam allowance onto the top of the waist in the back or the front. If you cut off, if you're designing a waistband off the top of your skirt and you cut it, you have to add a seam allowance back in. So let me just finish this one first, and then I have to go back and add it to the back piece as well. So I'm just going to tape, I'm going to tape it on like this so I can just do everything all in one piece here. So just going to okay, so there's my extra. And again, I'm just going to label this in, or highlight this in pink so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's the top edge of my skirt now. Okay, so I'm going to add my 1/2 inch, and I can just go straight across here, I think. And then I'm also going to go right down like this. And then I can continue adding it down the side, or down my center front, I'm sorry. All right, so there's the top of my skirt, and then this piece is going to fit right in like that. Okay, so that's the little detail at the center front of this skirt. It's like the little triangle that they put at the neck of sweatshirts, I think. I think they're trying to make a like a sweatshirt statement. So that's my little V-shaped insert for the front, and there's the space for it to fit. So of course, if I were to line this up, I'm just going to line it up like this to sew this. I believe, let me just see something here. I'm going to pin it to check it. Let me just pin it on, hold on. Okay, so if I fold it like this, okay, you can see that's how it's going to fit. Okay. So the way I'm going to sew this is I'm going to sew it onto one side, and then I will sew up the center front and then bring it to the other side. Okay, so I think this, I think this will work fine. I'm going to fold this back. Okay, so let me fold back the opposite. There's my opposite side, my opposite seam allowance, and you can see that the point is right at the stitching line for the base. So I can just make a note of that. You know, there's my, that's the dot that we need to line up with right here. So there's going to be a dot right here to place it, make it blue. So this dot is going to line up with this dot. Okay, so that's how it's going to place. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this? All right, so I've got that done. I added my seam allowance there. I'm going to pin this little piece to my skirt so I don't lose it. So this is a tiny little piece. All right, now I'm going to just go to the bottom here, and I'm going to tape paper to the bottom so I can add my hem to here as well. All right, so first, let me just do it in the same order that I did the other side. Let me just measure down 4 inches. Do I have enough paper? Nope. All right, I'm going to have to tape it on because I don't have enough paper. All right, so while you guys are watching me, if you're participating in this and you are going to try to make a skirt, if you have any specific skirt styles that you're interested in, please let me know. Oh, Claude wants to know if I could make the triangle an integral part of the waistband. Oh, and Mary's busy in the kitchen. You have hamburger buns rising, and you made pizza dough for tomorrow. Oh, Mary, do you make the kind of pizza dough that you just, you just make it in a bowl, but you don't really need it that much, and then you sort of form it into a disc and put it in the refrigerator overnight? I love that. It makes that really soft, chewy kind of pizza dough. I do that quite a bit. I get the Cook's magazine that tells you all the science behind the cooking, so I've been trying some of their refrigerated pizza doughs. They come out really good. All right, so as far as putting the triangle as part of the waistband, that is an interesting idea. I'm thinking about it. I mean, I could. That kind of reminds me of Wonder Woman for some reason, to have like a waistband that like dips down into a V. Let's think about that after I finish the hem. That's a kind of a good idea. All right, so I'm going to just measure. This is my original hem right here. So I want to make sure I get that 4 inches measured down. Well, if that little triangle is part of the waistband, there'd be less likely that I would lose it. We'll say that. All right, let me just draw this. All right, so here's the finished length of the skirt. And just to keep it consistent with what I did before, I'm going to make it blue. And then I'm going to add the facing. All right, so we're going to measure down 4.5 inches for the facing. All right. All right, so here's my facing. Okay. So basically this is going to make just a sort of just a straight skirt with a waistband, with a self-faced hem. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for me to try the actual fitting on. All right, so I'm just going to finish noting my seam allowance here. Oops. And then let me just add my seam allowance on this side. All right. Okay, so there is my skirt. I'm going to cut that out. We want to double check and make sure the side seams match, and so I want to do that. And the thing about sweatshirt fleece is it doesn't really have a significant amount of stretch, but it has give. So I think that'll be a good first fabric to try it in. I'm hoping I have some in my stash somewhere, but if I don't, I will get some. All right, so this is my front. I have to say I really like cutting on this cutting mat so much better than cutting on my old cutting mat, because it's not self-healing and I don't have to press down hard, and it's a really nice surface to work on. Okay, I'm going to think about this triangle piece to be incorporated in the waistband. All right, well, there is my completed top, and here's my waistband. I mean, I think Claude was saying if I did something like this, I could make it all one piece, which I could. That is a good idea. However, the one thing that makes it a little bit tough is for a test skirt, then I would have to sew a V. And if I leave it separate, I can sew it like a godet. All right, let me just see here. Ooh, there's a bunch of comments. Hold on. Mary says, I mix it like that, form it into a ball, and let it rise in the refrigerator. My son gives me a Lloyd's pan for Christmas, and I've been using it to spread the dough and bake it the next day. Oh, that's so yummy. And Nilgun says, yesterday I bought an industrial sewing machine. The company people were bringing it tomorrow. I would love to buy a Janome Continental M7, but it's over $3,000. The one I got was only $500. Oh, well, that's very cool, Nilgun. Congratulations. Oh, Claude, Claude is saying sorry for the suggestion. I want you guys to suggest anything and everything that comes to your mind. Feel free to just suggest things, because guess what? I don't know everything, and sometimes you might have a better idea or a better way to do something I'm doing. So always feel free to suggest things or make comments, because I think that's part of what makes these little live streams fun, because we're live and we can talk about it. Okay, so Diane wants to know if she could use Ponte knit for this skirt. Yes, Diane, I think Ponte knit would be a good choice for this. Now here's the thing you want to consider. If you did the draping 101 with me last Friday, and you draped your fabric pieces onto your dress form to get your skirt sloper, and it's non-stretch fabric. You want to make sure that the fabric you're using doesn't have a significant amount of stretch, because it will be huge. So if you find a ponte knit that's very firm and not very stretchy, I would say yes. But something that's really stretchy might become huge. But here's another thing. Because you're making a skirt, it's very easy to just take it in. So you would just have to play with taking in the side seams. And actually, because this has center back and side seams, it'd probably be pretty easy to take in. It's not like when you make pants and you have that crotch seam that causes all the problem when you try to go from stretch to non-stretch. So just keep that in mind, that if you use something that's more stretchy than the fabric you use to make your sloper, it's going to be big and you might have to take it in. All right, so so once I have a tried and true sloper, like I have to just test to make sure this fits, then I will do something complicated. I'm going to do more things with it that are more involved than just 4 pieces and a waistband. So for now I'm going to leave this separate, but Claude, I do like the idea of attaching it. Like I said, for some reason it reminds me of Wonder Woman. I don't know why, but anyway, so there is my completed front waist. It's got the all my seam allowances. I have my my hem. And what I want to do now is I just want to verify that the side seams match. And I just have to add a seam allowance to the top of my back piece. So I am just going to keep all of these things pinned together so they don't get lost. Because you know, the minute I all right, the minute I take my eyes off it, I will lose it. Oh, Claude says, you're right, better done your way. It's not right, it's just different. I like your idea. All right, so this is a cautionary tale of something that can go wrong. You always want to double check and make sure you did everything you were supposed to do, because if I forgot to put the seam allowance on the top of the back waist edge, then when I sewed my skirt together, it might not have matched. I mean, I am going to check it to true it up, but just, you always want to make sure you double check everything before you cut it out of fabric. All right, so let me just quickly put a seam allowance up here, and then we're just going to true these up, and then I think I will have completed what I wanted to show you guys today. But if anybody, like I said, if anybody has ideas for a specific skirt style that they're interested in making, if you post those comments, then maybe version 2 could be something that directly interests you. All right, so I'm just going to darken my original. All right, so let's just add that seam allowance. Well, let me make it pink so you can see. So this is my original edge. All right, so then I'm just going to add my seam allowance on top of that. Okay, let me see. Okay. I mean, this is basically a straight line. I'm just dashing along here. All right. Okay, so now let's check it. And I want to show you how to check your pattern to make sure the side seams match. You don't start at the top or hem edge and go all the way to the bottom, because it's very important that you start from your hip line. So let me just get my other pattern piece over here. Let's make some room. Okay. Just make it big so you can see. All right. Oh, Jamie just said you ordered the cutting mat like yours, the 36 by 60 for your birthday. It was a great video, thank you. Well, number one, happy birthday. And number two, you're gonna be really excited when you get it because it's so nice. And you can see this one here is getting dirty. There's a lot of pencil smudge, but those clean up really nice. The only thing that does not clean up nicely is Sharpie marker. So if you're gonna do Sharpie marker, and you don't want Sharpie marker on your cutting mat, put something down before you do Sharpie marker, because Sharpie marker does not come off, but all the other stuff does come off. I've been testing, you know, different things, but like, see, my hands are like black from the pencil, and it's getting all over my mat, but I'll wash it off later. All right, so I'm gonna take this is my front, and this is what we're concerned about right here. Let me just move this out of the way for now. This is my hip line right here. I want to make sure that I line those up from the start. So I'm going to use my hold on, I just need to find a I don't know what I did with my awl. I will use my little scissors instead. Okay, so you want to start up right at wherever your hip line is. Okay, you want to tack it there, then rotate up to the top. Okay, and you can see, I think you can see, my front is about 1/8 of an inch higher than my back. So I'm just going to draw that in and trim that off. Okay, this is why it's a good thing to check. All right, and then you want to go from the hem, from the hip line down to the hem. And since it's a straight line, I can just run my hand along here, and my front is, again, a tiny bit, probably 1/16 of an inch longer. So I'm just going to make a note of that. Okay, let me just show you. It's a teeny little bit, but you can see it was just like that little tiny bit too long. So again, I'll just use my ruler and just trim that off. All right, you don't need to check your center front to see if it matches the center back, because the center front does not sew to the center back. Okay, and I do get that question sometimes, like, why is my center front longer than my center back, or why is my center back longer than my center front? If you have a prominent tummy, or if you have a prominent butt, and you draped your pieces, chances are your center front or center back could be a little bit longer. Okay, so don't worry about, if you don't have a straight line here, that's the other thing. Depending on how you draped your pieces, if you were paying attention to what your actual hem was doing, it may work out that you need a little bit extra length at the center front or the center back to get your hem to hang straight. All right, let me see. I know, we should all sing happy birthday to Jamie. If I had a nice voice, I would, but I would scare her. But I'm really happy. Happy birthday! This is so exciting. I love when we all share our little happy sewing news. All right, so here, let's just review the pieces and just make sure everything is happy snappy. I've got my back, I've got my front, I've got my waistband, and I've got my little triangle. So I'm going to turn these pieces into a version of this skirt right here. Now, after I went through the whole bother of showing you how to close the darts to make the waistband, The other thing I want to point out about this version of the skirt right here, this is a gathered waistband. Okay, so if you want to have gathered, like a gathered waistband, um, you could leave the dart open and then put elastic in there to get it to fit. I'm not a fan of that. I want a more smooth waistband, so that's why I close my dart to make a waistband that will fit. And again, because I'm going to be using like a sweatshirt fleece, I'll be able to pull it on and it will stay on my shape, because for me, my waist is almost the same measurement as my fullest hip. So I'll be able to get away with pulling this skirt on and off without needing a zipper or any sort of closure. So that's my plan. I am not going to put the slash pockets on this one, because if it doesn't fit, that's a lot of work. So I'm going to leave it simple, and I'm going to have the pieces cut out for next Fab Fit Friday. So when you join me next Fab Fit Friday, I'm just going to show you how to sew it together. And like I said, we'll do some specialty techniques on the serger, maybe the reverse flat lock, to sew the pieces together. And then maybe instead of doing a heavy reverse flat lock or cover stitch around the hem to secure the hem, maybe we'll do the not so blind hem, so it has ladders showing. That's like the reverse flat lock. So that's my plan. I'll have all the pieces cut out and ready to go so we can sew next Friday. And yeah, so that's my report. If anybody has any questions or comments about designing their skirt, if you have any designs you're interested in, please post those and I will add them to my list of topics to talk about next week. I hope you guys have a really nice weekend, and I will see you next week. Oh, Mary says, birthdays are such a wonderful reason to get sewing equipment. I know. I feel like you could even almost make up a reason to get a sewing equipment. But like when you have a bona fide holiday, like your birthday, I think you should treat yourself. I think that's great. I'm like super excited. Anyway, so that's my report. I hope you guys have a really happy weekend. I hope everybody's safe and sound. And I will see you next week for sewing the skirt during Fab Fit Friday. All right, so I'm going to sign off now, and I hope you enjoyed this. Okie doke. All right, bye-bye.